Welcome back, you guys. It is Saturday afternoon, not at our normal scheduled time, but it's all right. It's football season. We got some NBA going on. I want to introduce one of my new co-hosts that I have uh, finagled and got on finally. His name's Rob. Rob, say hi to the group.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for
So
having me.
that is no problem. So, uh, I labeled this stream called NFL Chief Kingdom due to the fact because Kansas City has been one of the most relevant teams and has shown so much success and promise over the past 5 years. Now, you being in Kansas City and seeing Kansas City doing what they do, what are your thoughts on how you've seen the progression since Andy Reid has gotten there, Rob?
First of all, I've been a lifelong Chiefs fan, so this has been amazing. I've suffered through countless horrible seasons. Right before we got Andy Reid, we were 2-14. Um, I I feel like I'm one of the few teams, us and probably the Browns, that can relate to the situation that Jacksonville had. So I definitely feel your pain there. But since Andy Reid got there, he pulled in Alex Smith. Great success. A lot of people didn't like Alex Smith. I loved him. Um, he took that veteran route, helped Mahomes out. Mahomes has openly given him a lot of credit for it. And then Mahomes is just almost, I don't want to say single-handedly, because he definitely had help from Kelsey and from Andy Reid and all of the game planning, and they let him be him. But between those three and this organization letting him run, I think they've changed the game, and I think it's going to be a little while before teams catch up. Look, teams will eventually catch up, but I'm enjoying this wave right now.
I can only imagine, as my wave as a Jacksonville Jaguar fan has gone up and down, up and down. We're finally going back up finally. You know, um, but as we talk about Kansas City in particular, there's been a lot of you guys losing Tyreek Hill over the summer, and then just signed a couple, Juju Smith Schuster and other. I guess I'm going to call them role player wide receivers. Were you nervous going into the season with Kansas City? Did you feel like you guys had the opportunity to possibly make it back to the big game?
So the easy answer for a Chiefs fan is to say no. But I'm going to say some things that you don't normally hear a Chiefs fan say. For example, after Patrick Mahomes' first year as a starter, I wasn't a huge fan of him. I was nervous. Um, and the reason that I was nervous was because I felt like he was going to have the same problem as Drew Brees always had. Like, obviously, he had insane numbers that first year as a starter, but his defense was always on the field. It was always 3 and out or a touchdown. It's score or give the ball back. And that scared the crap out of me, because in order to win championships, you have to have that solid defense. The reason Drew Brees got to the Super Bowl is because that year he had a solid defense, but you have to be able to keep him rested. In his second year as a starter, he completely changed that. He was throwing smaller passes, Alex Smith type passes. He was taking the opening when it was given to him, but he wasn't forcing it. He owned the clock, which was what I loved about Alex Smith. Defense was always fresh. You didn't have to have like a bunch of like hardcore experienced all pros on the defense. They were just more rested, and we were wearing them out. Um, Going into this season, because he had proved that he was able to adapt, that's why I wasn't so worried. It was just that he's shown that intellectual level. He's not falling into the same traps that like RG3 did, where he's got his legs and he's always going to use them. He's looking for the best option and constantly evolving his game. Because of that ability and Andy Reid, that limited my thoughts on risk with losing Tyreek Hill.
Okay. We got a question here in the chat box. I'm gonna post it real quick and give us your thoughts on this. So Guitar Tim says it's possible for the Chiefs to repeat, but how many contracts are up, or who is eligible for free agency, and etc. So I guess we can take this into chunks. You being the Chiefs fan that you are, and I know you are dialed in as a Chiefs fan, are you worried about how many contracts are possibly up, or are there a lot of contracts that are currently coming up that probably the normal person isn't tracking? Anybody
We
know?
always we always have a lot of contracts though. The advantages that we have, Patrick Mahomes is not. He knows he's set. He's got generational wealth. He's willing to leave money on the table. They've also structured his contract to where anytime they need to, they can restructure it, bump some into a signing bonus, give him more guaranteed money later, whatever. They can create more cap space. The biggest risk for me is Orlando Brown, because at the end of the day, we've got to protect Mahomes. The line has done amazing, and I don't want to shake up the line. We've got good depth that can play all over the line, but that is a big man to potentially lose. So as far as that goes, I'm not really worried as long as we've got the line. The defense is mostly rookies. I don't
That's
have
wild.
really, yeah, I don't have a lot of concerns with that. Orlando Brown's the biggest piece. A lot of people are going to say McCole Hardman. I'm not a big fan of McCole Hardman. I think
Well,
he's
why is
barely a
that?
step. Well, I mean, he's a flash in the pan. He's barely a step up above what Dexter McCluster was. He's a little bit more efficient. He's got a little bit more speed, but as as good as his stats look, nobody's really showing all of his drops. He drops stuff at key moments. He came out as a gadget player, just like McCluster, but don't forget Tyreek Hill started that way too. He started out as like a running back gadget player, made his way on punts, and then he put in that effort to make sure if a ball touched his hands, it did not leave his hands. Obviously, he already had the speed. McCall Hardman got drafted because of his speed, but he doesn't have the catch efficiency that Tyreek Hill does. So I think he's going to get an opportunity somewhere, and I don't think Brett Veach is going to be dumb enough to overpay him to keep him because we can get another fast guy in the draft. We can get somebody that's got a little bit more experience. MVS came out. He had the speed. Similar problem. He's fast. He's not catching a lot of the balls that get to him. So for me, like I'm okay not having all the yards after the catch or the deep balls that Hill had, as long as when Patrick Mahomes puts it on the money, we get those yards.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk about the playoff run that Kansas City had. When you guys played Jacksonville, obviously because you guys had the bye week, do you? But before we get to bye week, real quick, do you believe the fact that Kansas or the Bengals and Bills playing and not being able to finish the game, do you believe that possibly might have shooken up the whole 1, 2, 3 seed?
I do. And I think that it had impacts into the playoffs beyond just that, like the mental side. Like when you get to the playoffs, you have to be mentally dialed in. And that was a whole lot of extra, like unnecessary conversations that were taking focus away from all of the teams to be able to focus on the game. Same reason that once the season starts, a lot of like MVP caliber players won't talk about contracts. Coaches aren't talking about that other stuff because they want to stay dialed in. And that forced conversations that were outside of the game.
Okay, so you guys played Jacksonville. Hey, Rob, can you turn on your speaker just a little bit? I'm getting some feedback on this side.
Yep.
Okay, I think we're good now. Yep, perfect.
All right.
So with you guys playing Jacksonville and that sack where they kind of, defense tackle kind of leaned on Patrick and put him out for that whole quarter or that rest of the quarter there, going in the second half. And, Andy sticking to his guns and saying, hey, you're not getting back on the field until you go get an x-ray. What was your thoughts on how Andy Reid handled the situation? And do you think having such a veteran like Chad Henne showed him imperative during that time?
So I loved that Andy Reid did that. Andy Reid is one of the few coaches that's known as a player's coach. His players love him, trust him, and respect him. And to be able to stand up to the face of your franchise, the guy that has carried your team, he's the only one that showed up to the Super Bowl against the Bucs. And to be able to say, like, this isn't the best for the team, but this is best for you. Like, I'm stepping up. No matter what relationship we have, somebody's got to have the guts to say, like, this is the line. If you want to accomplish X, you need to do Y. There's no conversation. I don't care your star power. I don't care the impact you're having. I care about your safety, and I care about your family. So get out of the game, go check these boxes, and then if you can come back, I'll allow you to come back, but not until then. I respected that more than anything because the big rap for the NFL is they're all about making money. They don't care about the players. Well, regardless of what the NFL is doing, Andy Reid cares about his people. And because of that, we will always have that extra advantage in recruiting and retention. And it's just some of those intangible things that a lot of coaches don't get credit for.
I think you said that perfectly. Then you guys now we played you guys twice between Jacksonville and you guys, and I felt like it was always a close game. And I covered this a couple weeks ago, and it was like if you have the momentum against Kansas City, you have to keep it on the pedal. You cannot give away possessions, you cannot go 3 and out, and you cannot kick field goals. Do you concur with that assessment there with your team if you are playing a team that's on that same caliber in a way?
Yeah, so I'm interested to see how it's from your perspective, actually, because I know as a Chiefs fan, I've seen it happen way too many times. It's not over until it's over. We could be down 3 touchdowns with 2 minutes. I'm like, we got shot. But at what point, like at what spread do you feel comfortable when you have a lead? Like if you're halfway through the fourth quarter and you're winning by 4 touchdowns, are you like, all right, we got this? Or you're like, we better keep scoring?
I think so. From the way I look at it, being a Jaguar fan, and I've been a Jaguar fan since inception, just like yourself. And seeing Jacksonville come back from 27 down in the previous game, I believe it. This is just me. I believe it starts at a head coach, at that leadership pinnacle portion there, because they're going to echo everything that head coach is doing. Just like how Doug Peterson called out the media for calling the Houston game a meaningless game, and then him having to backtrack to his team and tell his team the same thing, and them echo the same exact thing all the way down when it comes to what they need to be saying, which is job's not done yet. Job's not done yet. And then you kept hearing that. And the great thing is Doug Peterson is off of Andy Reid's coaching tree. So with that, he's a very keel, even person, and everybody said the same thing. He doesn't get super hyped. He's very keel, and they're best friends, which is great. They draw a lot from each other, but I believe just the maturity and having that Super Bowl winning edge, I believe that bleeds down to the team, and I think with that, it's going to bleed from them. So you're never really out because they believe they can always have a comeback. They can always have a stop. They can always have a pick six, And Kansas City did the same thing in the Super Bowl. You guys were down 10 points going into half, and you guys made a crucial tying score with that wonky fumble. But just from my point of view, I think that's just how Kansas City's built and how Andy Reid is. I mean, I remember watching Andy Reid in Philly taking Donovan McNabb to the Super Bowl and not being able to finish the job. But unfortunately, I think with that, it comes down to leadership and the head coach. I think that's where it really derives from. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so leadership. Kind of take it back a little bit. At least at the end of his career, I just had his name, Ray Lewis. He was not the most effective linebacker, but he was a cheerleader on the field. His presence made everybody around him better. Just like Tim Tebow, crunch time. Their presence made everybody around them better. And I think that the advantage that Kansas City has is Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. You see them running out like onto the edge of the field to the sideline when defense is coming out, giving props, motivating everybody regardless of the position. They put in the work to be able to influence the entire team. And I think that's one of the main factors with why we're able to come back. They can say, we're putting in this work, we're doing our job, we're holding you accountable, and you step up. I didn't watch a lot of the Jaguars games this year. Obviously, I watched the Kansas City games.
Right.
But my question is, do you have anybody that plays for the Jaguars that elevates everybody else?
Trevor Lawrence. It's weird to say it, but it's Trevor Lawrence. Due to the fact, and I might not even say Trevor Lawrence to say I'm going to say Doug Peterson. Because here's the thing. A lot of the draft picks that we had that played outstanding this year, between our draft picks, between some of our free agency people that came in, like Zay Jones, Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk, people that got massive contracts or just got traded at the right time, and it gave us that biggest push, which was Evan Ingram from the Giants that came in right at the trading deadline. I believe seeing Doug Peterson come in, that's what changed. Finally getting an adult, I call it an adult at the table, a person that has been around the league, has played in the league, has, coached multiple quarterbacks that are top tier individuals and know how to get the maximum value out of them. So if you look at Doug Peterson, what he did in Philly with Wentz having that MVP run and then gets knocked out, and now you have to, pick and choose how you're going to run your offense to a Nick Foles to tailor to hit what he does well. And they almost went back twice to the Super Bowl with Nick Foles when Wentz went out. So I think that's Doug Peterson. That's you can't say anything but that's him. So when he came down to Jacksonville and seeing what Urban Meyer did, and now me, I'm on record saying yes, I was high on Urban Meyer. Me being from Florida, being a Gators fan, seeing what he did with the Gators, seeing what he did with Ohio State. He has a proven track record. But there were some things that was starting to come out slowly as he left Ohio. With a couple of the coaching situations with some domestic stuff with some of his coaching staff. Between their wives that he kind of kept under wraps, which, people are going to do that. But seeing what he did to my team, and I call it my teams, I love the Jaguars, Josh Lambo, he kicks him in practice and he no longer can kick again. Calling people losers, just such a demeaning individual, unfortunately, he was, and didn't know how to get across to his team what he was trying to do. Maybe he was trying to do the right thing, but maybe it just wasn't communicated correctly. And that can be a big thing. And maybe that's just how Urban Meyer was. But when I saw Doug Peterson come in and I saw that he got hired, because there was potential rumors, and you remember as well, that Byron Leftwich was in the driver's seat to get the Jacksonville job. Now, Byron Leftwich did play for Jacksonville, did have a lot of success. I mean, I was okay with Byron, but I didn't think he was like the greatest thing for the team, because David Garrard came in shortly after him, and then we had that playoff push, and then the Patriots beat us. But I was excited because when you have like a Doug Peterson and you've seen what he's been able to do, because remember before he coached Philly, he was coaching high school, and so that tells you that, a lot of people weren't high on that because he was like, well, he's never coached in the league. And not to get off the scale or off the road a little bit about it, but if you think about it, it's not about where you've coached at. It's about how you infect change and get the maximum value of your players. I think so.
Yeah, I agree. I think it goes down to leadership in general. You end up having two types of leaders. The ones that invoke fear in their team and people execute because they're too scared to get in trouble. Or there's the ones that invoke respect. And personally, I'm going to work harder for somebody that I'm scared to let down than I'm scared to punish me. If I'm scared you're going to punish me, I'm going to find the gray area. I'm going to find the loopholes. I'm not really caring about the end result. I'm just trying to dodge a punishment. Where
Exactly.
If I respect you, I'm going to break my back to make sure that I do not let you down.
Exactly. And I think seeing Doug Peterson and just, seeing the culture he's changed in Jacksonville, Khan, which is our owner, I've never really been big on him. I don't, he has a certain type of analogy. When he first came in as our owner, he was like, I don't want someone that's like really high on themselves and things like that. But sometimes you need those type of individuals that know what they're worth. Unfortunately, you're not going to get that person that's, you don't make it to the NFL and be one of 32 coaches and not have some type of ego. I don't care who you are. Andy Reid isn't going to let someone talk to him a certain type of way. We all know those things, as leaders, as people we are in our professions. We have those certain triggers where we tell our subordinates, hey, I have a certain type of thing, but you will not do X, Y, or Z. And I think if that's clearly delineated, then I think that's where you kind of set up the expectations.
Yeah, and I think that Jacksonville, I was thinking about this earlier. Jacksonville's kind of in the middle of the road as far as they've gone through a lot of head coaches. The last one, it was an absolutely necessary change. But you look at some of these more reliable teams, like the Patriots. They've had Bill Belichick for a while. I'm not a big Bill Belichick fan, but they have that consistency. Mike Tomlin. You have Andy Reid. We went through a few coaches for a while, but I think that Peterson gives you the ability to have some consistency. Previously, you guys have been not as bad as the Browns, but you guys were rotating through head coaches for a little while.
We were. It was bad.
Carolina's putting themselves in the same situation.
So let's pause on Carolina real quick. They've made some coaching changes. I was a little sad to see that Steve Wilkes didn't get the job.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that by doing that, the ownership hurt themselves as far as free agency recruiting. Like they've shown there is no ability to learn the system. You don't have time. You hit the ground and you execute, which I get the desire to win, but you have to establish that consistent foundation. Otherwise, like if I'm a free agent, why am I gonna like you might give me a bunch of money up front, but if I believe I've got a long career, why am I gonna risk it going there when you've shown if I have 6 bad games in a row, I'm out as a coach or as a player? The risk is too high.
So what you're saying is that if an organization doesn't show that they have stability at the head coaching position or just in positions in general, that it deters high market free agent players to go there?
I think so.
So
And I also think
no, go ahead.
sorry,
Go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I think it goes in the opposite direction with one specific example, and that'd be Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones, sometimes he holds on too long because he has those emotional connections and he relies on that. With some of his coaching, with a lot of his players. I mean, look at these players that he's formed bonds with. You have Des Bryant. As soon as Des Bryant was finally let go, he didn't catch on anymore. Why? Zeke, he got paid to be one of the top running backs in the league. He still technically is right now. But was it him or was it the line? I think it was the line. But I
agree
think that Zeke was able to leverage that relationship with Jerry to get the money.
So then, all right. So look at it this way. So let's look at the Baltimore situation because that's real big right now, as we both know, and we've been following it for quite a bit now. And I know we've talked about this off air. So Jalen Hurts, I just saw something today said Jalen Hurts could possibly get his contract extension next couple of days for about $200 million guaranteed. A lot of people are still really, really, really high on Baltimore and kind of blaming or on Lamar, but are kind of blaming the Baltimore organization for not tying him up in contract later or earlier than what they should have. But I was listening to speak yesterday, and they said something pretty key that I don't think a lot of people are talking about or thinking about. Baltimore has never really given big money to a quarterback besides Joe Flacco after he had that Super Bowl run. But he had the Super Bowl run and win to get the big contract. But he's the only quarterback they've ever given that much money to. Now, do you think Baltimore's been like, okay, you missed 6 games this year, you missed 6 games last year, you've been injured twice. Do you think there's a little bit of hesitation between the organization and also with Lamar saying that they're $100 million plus away from an actual contract? Your thoughts?
I do think that's like they learned an important lesson there. But you also have to look at the different types of quarterbacks they are. So my biggest thing about Patrick Mahomes was his ability to adapt and change his game based on what's given to him. I haven't really seen Lamar change his game. He's got a good deep ball. He's got the strength. He's got the legs. But at the end of the day, he relies on those legs, and he's prone to injury because of it. So if you can't show me that you're going to adapt your game, no matter all these weapons that we're continuously giving you, we're giving you like good defenses. We're giving you the wide receivers. Like Aaron Rodgers isn't getting all of these perks. He's not getting all of these players. That's why he's upset. But we're going to give you these players. You're not going to stay in the pocket. You're not going to protect yourself. Like I love the dedication that you're willing to put your body on the line to get us those wins. That's awesome. But for longevity, if you want this guaranteed money, I want to see you protect yourself for this franchise. I want to see you adapt. I want to see you realize that you're not going to be able to run and gun this whole time. You're going to have to figure out how to protect yourself because I'm not going to lose $300 million in 10 years because you're in a wheelchair on the sideline half of every season.
So do you think with how Patrick was able to where he was limited, but he was able to stay in the pocket and do what he had to do you think that's his dedication to his craft and being able to say, all right, hey, I know I'm not going to be able to run around a lot. If I do get injured, I still got to somehow be able to operate. Do you think that's almost the same way?
Like I may have seen this just because it might be local news, and Lamar may have said this with Baltimore news. I don't know for sure, but I know from Patrick Mahomes after every season, obviously 2 years now they've got the result that they wanted, but it's always I have a lot to work on. I haven't heard that from Lamar. Like he's great. He's highlight reels, all of this stuff, but is he dedicated to the evolution?
Man, I think you make a good point on that. I think you make a very good point on that. Yes, a lot of people say, and I've been banging Lamar for this, just due to the fact that I've seen Lamar since he was in high school, since he was down in Boynton Beach High School, playing high school football. He is a human highlight reel, 100%. But I think you make a very good point on he's so enamored or so focused on I need X amount of money to play. Now, the organization has had a lot of issues of trying to get big agent wide receivers to go play with Lamar. I don't know if he has the credibility yet. I don't think as being a top tier quarterback. A lot of people will say, yes, he is a top tier quarterback, but is he? I mean, just look at the overall AFC conference quarterbacks right now. You lost in overtime against Jacksonville. In Jacksonville.
I'll say he is close to a top tier quarterback. He is definitely well above average this year, last year, previous years. But can I say that he will be next year or that he will be in 3 years? No, I can't.
I think you make a good point there. Just due to the fact because I don't think Baltimore wants to pay him $200+ million.
No, I think it comes down to the same thing as Babe Ruth. Yeah, he'll lead in home runs. He's got all those highlight reels. But what nobody talks about is the strikeouts, those missed opportunities. So he's getting all these highlight reel touchdowns. He's breaking tackles. He's running all over the place. But if you look at every game he misses due to an injury as X number of missed opportunities, throws that he never even got the opportunity to make, does that average him out?
Man, that's a good way to look at it. I don't think a lot of people are thinking about just that right there. Like, hey, Lamar Jackson, yes, you are a human highlight reel. Yes, you've won 70% of your games, but maybe if you didn't miss those 12 games, maybe you would have finally have made a deep playoff run. And people are saying, like, yes. I'm like, yes, but you're 1-3 in the playoffs. You are 1-3 in the playoffs with one unanimous MVP, which has been almost 5 years ago, prior to COVID. All right. Yeah. And you were saying that you're still a top tier quarterback when you're not available for your team at the most crucial time. Because if Lamar is healthy, that changes maybe possibly the whole seeding of the AFC.
Yep. So what I would like to see, and I haven't looked at this data, this is just an assumption, but I would like to see his season record broken up by front half of the season, back half of the season. Obviously, with his injuries, I anticipate seeing a lot more games played during the front half of the season, but I still want to see, like, okay, so back half of the season, he's most likely, if he's playing, he's coming back from an injury or he's trying to push through an injury. And I would venture to guess that he has unbelievable numbers at the front half of the season and extremely subpar numbers at the back half of the season.
I think you're right, and I don't think anybody's really thinking about that. They just want to bring up, okay, hey, he's a unanimous MVP. I get it. I can't take that away from you. Nobody can. No one is saying that you're not a amazing talent, a great quarterback, but sometimes you have to be real with yourself. Think you just lost and I'm gonna bang it. You just lost to Trevor Lawrence. That's a second-year quarterback in his second system in overtime. And you want to get paid top tier money?
Yeah, but to his argument, Deshaun Watson sat out an entire season, has all kinds of off-field drama, and he just got a bunch of guaranteed money. So
that's because it's the Browns.
Yeah. He also went to an organization that is the most inconsistent, the epitome of inconsistency.
So can you really, like, yes, so it's kind of like the housing market. Let's be real. He's trying to do what the housing market does. Housing market's way up there, right? So everyone's selling to get their money, right? So that inflation kills the value because now people are overpaying. So I think Baltimore looks at it as like Deshaun Watson, inflation, okay? We're not paying over market price for you. We're not. I'm going to pay you fair market price on what you have done currently right now. I'm going to pay you $150 million fully guaranteed. But you're still saying we're $100 million off? Nah, player, I'm not doing it.
Yep. So looking at this roster on paper, it looks like they should be contending for a Super Bowl. They're not. Why? His injuries. So my question is, if you put Aaron Rodgers in that same system, I think they're more likely to hit a Super Bowl because he's not he'll have injuries. He has hand injuries, but you put him on that team and they're a Super Bowl favorite instantly.
Okay. So with Baltimore, and then we'll go on to Aaron Rodgers because you brought up Aaron Rodgers next. Baltimore, does he get traded and they get a bunch of draft picks and then go draft like a Bryce Young? Or do you think they franchise tag him and make him play under the $45 million cap?
I mean, I think they franchise tag him right now until they get a better option. But I'm not giving you a bunch of guaranteed money if there's anybody in the world that I can pick that might be available that's going to give me better odds to win a Super Bowl. If there was nobody else, then yeah, I'm going to give you that money because you're my best shot. But
what about Derek Carr?
Derek Carr, I don't know.
He's a free agent.
Consistent. Yeah, he's a free agent, but he's not consistent.
But he hasn't had consistency at the head coaching position.
He hasn't. You're right. And it'll give him a lot of good weapons. But
exactly.
Also, will I take Derek Carr if I can trade Lamar and get a bunch of draft picks in return? I might be downgrading.
I think you hit it right on the head. You sign Derek Carr, trade Lamar, get a bunch of draft picks, put it around Derek, and go.
Yeah, because you're saving a ton of money. So you're limiting your risk. You're maximizing the potential that you can add around him for the long future. And I think that would be the best thing for the whole team going forward. If he's not the answer today, it gives you the ability to build a stronger team to draft somebody that will be the answer for tomorrow.
I don't think anybody's talking about that. That actually makes sense. You sign Derek Carr to like a 2-year deal, 3-year deal, right? Give him moderate money, which he's willing to take. Trade Lamar. Send him to, let's just say we send him to the Bears. Bears got a bunch of picks. Bears or Houston, 1 and 2. They both got a bunch of picks. Grab their picks, go build in the draft, and now you've really got, because you've got stability at the head coaching position, which we both know is the most key component.
Yep. So who do you trade him to that'll make that risk worth it? I've got
it's got to be Houston.
Yep. I don't know if they have enough capital to make it happen, but they should with all that Deshaun Watson stuff they got.
I mean, you're right. I was going to say Miami, but Miami doesn't have enough to give.
No. Maybe the Saints, if they could fit him in the cap. Because they just got all that extra capital from
from Sean Payton. And they've got picks.
Yeah. But they have to get him underneath the cap. I
don't know it's going to happen. He's going to want all the money. That's the problem. And I think that's the big thing too, is they always want all the money, except for I keep saying it and I've kind of banged on it a lot, which is why not take a longer term deal, more money, longer term deal, kind of like a Patrick Mahomes deal. I call it a team friendly deal. Let's call it a team friendly deal. Why don't NFL players, star NFL players like quarterbacks, take a team friendly deal, keep the most weapons they possibly can around them to continue to have the success they have? Because if they have success, they get more endorsements, they get more bonuses, they get more money.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that part of this issue is I'm pretty sure he represents himself, right?
So his mom does. His mom represents him.
Yeah. So you're overvaluing yourself because that's what you do when you're talking about yourself. That's why people say, I'm leaving this to the business to my agent, because your agent's going to look at the data and they're going to advise you. I'm not going to trust my mom to make those things, to be unbiased and look at the data. No, she's going to favor me. She's going to say, I want my baby to be protected. Cool. But just know that the reason that all of these athletes are hiring somebody and giving this percentage of their income away is because they're getting that unbiased, not necessarily unbiased, because the more money you make, the more money they make. But
I mean, there's got to be some type of like not really bias, but they know that they're trying to work in the best interest of the player. And I think that go ahead.
I would say going back to just basic leadership. I don't want leaders working for me that are yes men. I want the ones that are going to say, "Hey, you're messing up. This might not be the best decision." And I don't know that he has anybody in his corner saying that.
Man, you know what? I think that is the best thing. You got to have that person that's going to be able to close that door behind you, or like let's say you walk back into your office, closes that door behind you, and tells you without knowing there's not going to be any repercussions, and knowing that hey, they're acting in the best interest of the organization and not for any personal gain.
Yeah, I mean, even just basically in my marriage, we have two completely different roles. You've met my
Right.
wife. I am the gas and the steering wheel. Like, if it's just me, we're crashing. Sorry, I am the gas and the motor. She is the steering wheel and the brakes. If it's just her, we're not moving. If it's just me, we're crashing. We've got to have that back and forth. And you need that with a player and an agent. That agent says, hey, pump the brakes. I don't think that we're making the right decision right here.
I think it's like they used to tell me, you take your feelings out of decisions, and you don't make decisions when you're in your feelings.
Yep. Which takes me right back to Jerry Jones. That is years of his deal. And he's got the money to do it. It's just why they're not growing.
All right, so let's talk about Aaron Rodgers. As you know, he's on his darkness retreat this weekend. All right, he is trying to figure out what am I going to do with my life. Where does he go, you think?
So I heard Packers are saying like he's not coming back. He's not starting if he comes back. That's what one of their like in the know long-term reporters has all the connections is saying. They're tired of his antics. They're tired of the stuff. They're committed to Jordan Love. If he comes back, he's riding the bench.
There's no way Aaron's riding the bench. No way he's letting that happen.
So if he retires, like, okay, cool, had a great career. But if he doesn't retire, all of these antics, I think hurt him because I'm not going to trade. One, the Packers aren't going to trade him away for nothing. Two, if I'm another GM, I'm not trading for a guy that just had to go hibernate in darkness for 4 days to decide if he even had the passion to play. No, not happening. Like, I don't care what your skill level is. I'm not going to leverage the future of my franchise on a guy that doesn't know if he's going to retire before it happens. Unless it's a conditional thing. Like, I will give you a first rounder to get him this year and then second and third rounders over the next few years. Like, I'm not leveraging my future on a guy that doesn't even know like if he's going in the door or out the door.
So you said a very interesting thing just a second ago, which is like draft picks, right? So like if they did like a conditional contract, we're like, all right, hey, I'm gonna take him because he still owes 2 years left on his contract, obviously. All right, hey, I'm gonna take him this year. I'm gonna give you 1 draft pick, but if he comes back a second year, I'll give you 2 additional draft picks, like a first rounder and 2 second rounders. I think that could possibly work for a team.
Yeah, but because you're not using them anyway. So right. You're saving the cap, you're getting the picks, like that makes sense. But on the other side of it, who's going to take him? Who has the cap space? He's not going to a team that's not ready to win a championship.
Raiders.
He wants a ring. Yeah. And he's got Devontae Adams there.
But you're in the worst division though.
Yeah.
The worst division, as in like winning division.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like he's going to a place where, like, no quarterback. There's a reason that Tom Brady went from AFC to NFC because the quarterback competition there is low. So why is he going to want to go to not just like a harder conference, but to the hardest division? Like, I don't know.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna put another one out there to you, and I've been really hard on this quarterback. Justin Herbert's supposed to be getting an extension for $260 million for the next couple of years. Do you think he deserves a $260 million contract extension, first off? And second off, do you think he is as highly coveted? Does he deserve it? And why?
Yes. And I will go back to his very first game that he started. He found out like 15 minutes before the game that he was starting because the team trainer is against the Chiefs. The trainer was giving Tyrod an injection in his chest and punctured his lung. And they said, "Oh, surprise, you're starting your first game today." And he came out and killed it. And I just remember thinking, oh, no, we have to play him twice a year, every year. And then, like, Chargers have always had a good cast around their quarterback. That's a good place to be as a quarterback if they can just finish stepping over that line. But let's look at what he's done. Like Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. How many games has he actually played with both of them on the field? So he's playing with inconsistent targets, still performing at a high level. Like, and now he gets Kellen Moore. Like, this is his opportunity. Like for both of them. Like if they fail, then the questions start coming. Like, okay, well, like he's got the tools, he's shown it. Why is he not stepping over this? And personally, I think up to this point, it's been coaching staff. I think the coaches and ownership. There's a lot of instability in the ownership. Some of the owners want to sell, some of them don't want to sell. They moved to a new city. They didn't treat Eric Weddle well on the way out. Threatened to fine him if he watched his kid's last performance at halftime at the stadium. I think there's a lot of administration stuff behind the scenes, but ultimately, like, I mean, I've got Patrick Mahomes, but if I didn't have Patrick Mahomes, I'd want Herbert.
Okay.
And I'd pay him. In my eyes, like, Herbert is one of the pillars of the future of the league.
Okay. So you are on board with the Chargers paying him possibly $260 million for the next 4 years. And do you see him as a threat in your division?
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, like for selfish reasons as a Chiefs fan and as like a logical fit, I think that if you put him on the Ravens are better than they are with Lamar right now.
Wow. Yeah, I can agree with you on that right there, 100%. I think now me being on the other side and Jacksonville not having a lot of success going to the West Coast to play, we just haven't. So when we beat the Chargers, third game of the season going in, and then they got to play them again going into the playoffs, I was a little nervous because they were healthy. Justin Herbert was healthy. The team was playing well. And then just watching him progress. But I think him losing to Trevor hurt him just a little bit when it comes into that elite conversation.
Yeah, well, so let me explain my emotions every time we play the Chargers.
Okay.
Normally, I get nervous on one side of the ball or the other. Like the Broncos have a good defense, but Russell Wilson was Russell Wilson last year. Like the quarterback issue hasn't really affected me. So, but looking at the Chargers, when we're on offense, I'm so nervous because that line is going to hit Mahomes. Bosa is going to be there. But then on offense, I'm like, oh, I have Herbert and he has people to throw to. Oh no, I've got a bunch of rookies on defense. So how many teams in the league make me nervous on both sides of the ball? Not very many. The Bengals, the Chargers. Maybe. Yeah.
The Bills though?
No, the Bills too.
Really?
The Ravens. Yeah, and like those guys they hit hard on every side of the ball.
I guess I guess so, but I mean, Josh Allen has regressed since he lost his quarterback coach.
Yeah, he has, but it comes down to one of those things too, where as much as they get after Mahomes, like I want to come out of that game without injuries. So if I have to lose to the Bills once, as long as it's not in a playoff game, like okay, cool. How does my health look? Like I'll put one game down. If I've got to lose one game and everybody gets healthy, cool. I still win 15, 16 games. Like I'm going to the playoffs. And I'm going to trust my team in the playoffs every time.
And you could possibly get that first round bye.
Yeah.
So all right. Well, so let's keep it in your division real quick. So because your division had a lot of controversy over this past season. Russell Wilson with Sean Payton coming on board, and adding some stability, and possibly Rex Ryan as well too coming on as a defensive coordinator. Now we all remember Rex Ryan when he played for or not when he played, but when he coached for the Jets. What he did with the Jets. Won a Super Bowl with the Ravens as their linebackers coach. How do you feel with the new coaching changes in Denver, and how does that possibly going to affect Kansas City moving forward?
So the Rex Ryan addition, if that happens, makes me more nervous than Peyton going there. So with Rex Ryan, like Peyton had his twin brother, as a defensive coordinator in New Orleans, and they meshed well. I think, like, if I was a Broncos fan, that's what
Yep.
I'm pushing for, which is why that scares me. They're already a good defense, and you give them all these tools and you let them come in, and I think that would be a great match for that organization. Now with Sean Payton and Russell Wilson, Peyton's already coming in making waves. There's going to be an ego battle there. Like, they brought in Peyton because Russell didn't execute. Well, what was Russell's issue in Seattle? Oh, let me cook. Like, I can carry a team. You gotta let me show what I can do. And he butted heads with Pete Carroll because of it. So now he's coming in. Sean Payton's very first thing is, hey, all your personal coaches are out the door. This is my team. Like, get out. Now all of a sudden, like, hey, you were brought here to be a star. You did not execute as a star. Check that ego out the door. This is my show. I came here to be the star now. And I think it might not come out the first year, but year 2, year 3, we're going to hear, like, all right, whether they're succeeding or not, there's going to be a lot of bumping of heads. And I think that again, back to the mental distractions.
So
I'm not as concerned on that.
So like with that, because they paid him, $250 million. But that was the old ownership. This is the new ownership, the deep pockets. We all know Walmart, deep pockets money. All right. With that owner,
the new owners paid him as soon as they got there.
Really?
Didn't they?
No, it was the other way around. The old ownership paid him because the Walmart ownership just took over just pretty recently.
But I doubt there's no way that you're getting ready to sell a team. You're going to hand that off without having conversations with your new ownership and getting their buy-in on the decision.
I think, and this is just speculation, and I'm going to just put it out there. With new ownership always comes bold moves, and I think they just want to win, just like any other owner does. And I'm not saying that no owner doesn't want to win, but all I'm saying is, like, they're the new guys in town. Hey, I want to win a Super Bowl. They want to host that Lombardi, because the franchise already has a couple already. So, do you think they're just trying to maximize their value of what they currently have?
I think that, like, they thought they found a winning formula. So after Elway, they didn't really have anything. And then they brought in Peyton Manning, and they won a Super Bowl. And they're like, all right, so this is what we need to do. We just need to bring in a quarterback that's already proven. We can't draft worth of crap, so let's bring in this guy. And they brought him in, and they're like, oh, this didn't work twice. What do we do now?
So with that, you think just where do you see Denver stacking in your division?
I mean, they're definitely bottom half. It's going to depend on who the Raiders can get. If the Raiders get Aaron Rodgers, then they're at the bottom. The Broncos are at the bottom. But, I mean, you can look at the Raiders, and obviously I'm a Chiefs fan. I can't stand the Raiders. But the whole reason that the Raiders left LA back in the day was because the Hollywood life had way too many distractions. So they go up to Oakland. They do all right. They have some success in Oakland, and now they're in Vegas. Well, what city in this country has more distractions than LA? Vegas. What happens as soon as they get there? Number 1 picks are going to prison. Like,
losing their minds.
So, yeah. So I don't know. Like, to me, it's obviously Chiefs are number 1 until they get proven to not be number 1. It's going to be a long time before that happens. But the only team that I see as a threat in the division is the Chargers, because they're set up for the future right now.
What about their head coach? They have a defensive head coach, remember?
Yeah.
Staley, I think it is.
Yep. And so, to be perfectly honest, like, I'm shocked that they didn't fire him. And that's, I think, again, a thing against ownership. I know I talked about consistency earlier, but if I'm ownership and Sean Payton's out there, I know Sean Payton wants to stay in LA. I'm firing that coach, and I'm getting Sean Payton in there, and then they are a Super Bowl favorite.
And Sean Payton wanted to go to LA. Like, he wanted, remember, because he even said that, like, the one team that he wanted to go to wasn't available, remember?
Yeah, he wanted to stay in LA. So I think that was a missed opportunity by ownership. Now they did do the next best thing. They brought in Kellen Moore. He's known as a young offensive guru. But my question is, they bring him in. If he has success on that side of the ball, they start winning. Now, does that head coach feel threatened by this new young? I think that's why he left Dallas, because McCarthy is like, oh, well, I'm the offensive guy. Like, I can do this. Let's kick him out. He was somebody that was left over from the last regime. Like, I want to have my stamp on this offense. I think McCarthy was threatened by Kellen Moore, and I'm worried that Staley will do the same thing. I'm not worried. I'm hoping for it. I'm hoping that this,
All
but
right.
like, I think that the best thing would have been, and I think I told you this earlier in the year, like, what scares me is if these dominoes fall in place. Luckily, they did. Sean Payton going to the Chargers, Jim Harbaugh going to Denver, and Tom Brady going to the Raiders, and then this division is entirely too scary for me.
I think so. I think your division and just kind of focus a little bit more on your division. I think your division could possibly be the hardest division in the NFL.
Yeah, it's what the Ravens and the Steelers used to be.
It almost reminds me of the and I can go back historically, but back in the early 2000s, when it was Jacksonville, it was the Colts, the Texans, and the Titans, when we were getting 3 out of 14 in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So you could almost still have that same success on the other side as well, kind of like what we saw in the NFC North with the Eagles, Dallas, and the Giants all going to the playoffs, and we almost saw the Commanders in there as well too.
Yeah.
So,
which is further proves my point on why Aaron Rodgers is not going to want to go to the AFC. There's too many low-level NFC teams in a completely easier conference.
So, and I know we talked about this off the air last week before it happened, and I know you and I spoke about this, and we should have probably been on air when we talked about it. Eric the Bieniemy, we talked about this, man. I was super upset to see him leave to go to the Commanders. Remember, because we talked about this, I think it was Sunday?
Yep.
A week before the Super Bowl, we chatted about it. And I said, hey, man, I don't think it makes any sense for him to go. It's not a smart move on him. There's no stability. We don't know who the quarterback is. They're getting ready to get sold. And why would you just do a bilateral movement? And like you and I both talked about, like, hey, like, he's never, ever going to get the credit that he might deserve about Eric the Bieniemy. A lot of people are banging on him because he's been interviewed 17 times. So let's take this, I guess, in layers real quick. Let's talk about the move first. What are your thoughts on the move?
I think it makes sense from all sides. He's been, the last few years, he's been on one-year deals because they anticipated him getting a coaching opportunity. He didn't. There's a lot of questions I have as to why. But as we discussed, the only opportunity he's going to have for a coaching opportunity at this point, he's been 5 years in this system, 5 successful years. He's going to have to go somewhere else. He's going to prove that it wasn't Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, that he had his fingerprint on. Do I think that was the best place for him? Absolutely not. I don't think that led his case. He didn't hedge his bets, but it shows that he was he was one of two things. He was either very confident in his ability to have an impact, which if he is, good for him. Like, he picked an uphill battle, or he knew that he had nowhere else to go because the Chiefs weren't going to keep him. Why would the Chiefs not keep him?
So what you're saying is the Chiefs were not going to bring him back this year?
They were non-committal. Now, they could have been non-committal because they knew he had this other opportunity waiting in the wings, or it could have been because Matt Nagy's back and they don't need him. They don't need the distractions. They don't need the constant conversation.
Okay, so now my second question to you on this, as I divide the layers of Eric the Bieniemy, unfortunately, why do you think he never got a head coaching position due to the fact of him having over 15 interviews to being a head coach, possibly?
Well, I think multiple reasons again. If you look at the players that were like pushing for him, you have Andy Reid, you have Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill started doing it recently. But you don't have a whole lot of players. Not a whole lot of players are going out of their way to like speak out to him. In fact, you have LaShawn McCoy, who is doing the exact opposite, who's essentially calling him worthless, saying that he did not know how to lead men. Look at this. Look at how many people, though, came from that offensive coordinator spot and became head coaches. Matt Nagy. You have Doug Peterson. You have a lot of successful ones. So what is being said in these NFL circles? It's like, oh, hey, this is the one-off coach. This is not the coach that these other coaches are. And I mean, you have casual conversations. You're in the same industry. You're in the same league. You get inside information that's not being shared with the public. So my question is, what was being said behind closed doors? Like, even if he was a bad interviewer, at some point, like you go for a job, your resume speaks volumes, and you suck at interviews. It's going to happen. It happens to people all the time. But odds are one of those teams or one of those organizations is going to say, you know what? Like, we think your resume, like, this was a bad interview. Like, we get that stuff happens. We're going to give you a shot based on your resume. And it's not like a resume, like, if I put in a resume, they're like, oh, your resume looks on paper. We don't know if you fluffed it. Like, you see his work on TV every week. Like, you see it firsthand. So, what is going on that was making people hesitant? Now,
So do you think maybe Travis Kelce not coming to his defense?
Travis Kelce's not the.
Travis Kelce has a huge platform.
He does have a platform, and I think that his silence speaks volumes.
Because when they asked, and you saw that during the interview at Super Bowl, they're like, "Hey, how do you get open all the time?" And what he said, Big Red. He didn't mention anything about Eric the Bieniemy. Maybe LaShawn McCoy maybe is onto something, but obviously he can't say everything because obviously he won't lose the trust of what was said in the locker rooms or in close circles like we've talked about. So do you think of also Travis Kelce not coming to his defense and saying like, yeah, he's a whiz, he's a that? Because I think Patrick is going to do obviously what Andy tells him to do, but I think Travis is that little bit of that wild card where he's going to say what it really is, but he's not going to say the political right way. Do you agree?
Yeah, well, I don't think that Andy's going to influence what anybody say. I don't think he's going to say, Mahomes, I need you to say this. I think he's going to trust him to be his own man and make his own decision.
Okay.
But you obviously have the star player. Like, if what LaShawn McCoy is saying is true, like, he likely doesn't have the same interaction with Patrick that he has with every other player on the team. Like, I'm not going to treat everybody else like they're subpar and then go to my star QB and do the same thing. Like, he's going to get some favoritism. Same reason Belichick didn't treat Brady like he treated everybody else. So I think that might be part of it. But then again, Travis Kelce, like, he's been working over the years on keeping his mouth shut when he should. He threw a flag at a ref, got a flag for it. Andy Reid's kind of been like, hey, like, you need to be more accountable. So this is one of those easy things. I'm going to sidestep. I'm not going to get in somebody else's mess. I'm not going to draw heat. I'm not going to be in the news for the wrong stuff. I've got too much stuff going for me right now that for some reason this person's battle is not worth my while.
That's a good way to look at it. I don't think a lot of people understand that point of view, and I think you brought a great point of view to the Eric the Bieniemy, because I know that's something you and I have talked about, off air ad nauseum sometimes, because it's one of the hottest topics, but it's, everyone wants to make it about race, and I hate when people do that, just do the fact because, like, just because you're brown, orange, purple, whatever you are, yes, there are going to be some extra goals you have to go through, unfortunately, but I hate when they want to just paint that narrow picture of that's the only reason. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do agree. I mean, and even to the point where, like, Matt Nagy is on the staff. Matt Nagy has had the position before, but because of the Rooney Rule, the Chiefs have to interview other people. They can't just put them in. Like, to me, one, yes, it makes sure, like, we're getting the diversity. We're doing, like, checking all of those boxes, and I do think that there needs to be a lot more diversity in the league. But Andy Reid has shown that, like, race isn't a factor. He's bringing people up, and he's developing people within his own organization, as teams should, regardless of race. He's giving them those opportunities. So I think the question needs to be had, like, okay, well, which teams are not promoting from within with diversity in mind?
Wow.
Not necessarily like the top people, but these, like, we need to get these coaches in, starting from, like, the very bottom and working their way up. And I don't think that the Kansas City organization is one where anybody can question it.
I think you put it right. What organizations and what coaches, because the head coaches should want their staff members to get other positions. So what are they not doing to groom their proteges to be that next and up and coming? There's stories about Tony Dungy and how he got his head coaching job. When he was an assistant, that head coach told him, like, hey, I'm going to bring you to all these meetings so that when you do become a head coach, you know what's expected of you. And I think that's why a lot of people, and I think no one's talking about that, because that's what makes certain organizations great, like the military. The military, raises you from, a private that you don't know anything all the way up and fits you to be that leader you need to be because they promote within their organization. And I think you hit that right on the head. What teams are not promoting in their organization? And maybe that's not what's being looked at.
So I do think that the league has taken the right steps to incentivize teams to do that. Now, like we're losing Eric Bieniemy, we should get a comp pick for that, just like you do losing free agents. Um, I do think that it's going to be a couple years before that really shows the results because the whole point is you have to start moving people up. Um, so it's going to reward the teams that were ahead of the game. The Chiefs were ahead of the game. Eric Bieniemy, like he moved up, he's moved out. We should get compensated for it. And I think that you're going to see once we start to look at the data from which teams are getting those comp picks because of that, you're going to see teams that don't get any, and those are the ones that were not focusing on diversity.
Yeah, because I mean, even looking at Jacksonville, I'm going to use Jacksonville as an example. They wanted Baltimore wanted to go after our offensive coordinator. We said no. We lost our wide receivers coach to a head coaching position in college, and that's just 1 year under Doug Peterson. Like teams aren't dumb; they know who's grooming their guys or gals to be that next up and coming coach.
Yeah.
And I think you're right.
Yeah, I think I'm curious to see like how this next step with the comp picks works out with the diversity side of the development.
So let's so as we've hit an hour already, I didn't realize it was already an hour. What's your prediction for and we're gonna leave off with this. With you guys losing Eric to Bieniemy, do you guys think you guys will take a step back, or do you guys think you guys will still maintain your prowess of being the top seed in the NFL?
No, I don't think we're going to take a step back just because Matt Nagy, he was the offensive coordinator before he started coaching the Bears. He knows the system, he knows the team, he knows the key players, he knows Andy Reid. Even if for some reason he ends up not getting the offensive coordinator position, they already brought him in. He's influential in the offense. We're not going to skip a beat.
Alrighty. Well, you guys have heard it here first. I greatly appreciate everyone that tuned in, decided to sit down with us for an hour and discuss our NFL predictions and our bold prediction, and our Kansas City local fan here, but also diehard fan, Rob here. We appreciate you coming on. We always thank you, everyone, for your support. Remember to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that share button, but also share with a friend. All right? And you can also catch us on our podcast as well. I'll have that down the link below. Rob, you got anything to say to the group before we cut out of here?
No, just thanks for having me. I'll talk to you guys again soon.
Thanks. Well, we appreciate it. And we're going to go off.
Have a good one.
Yep. And we are... Is it done?